and welcome to the CITBNI Data Protection and Information Security Training Session. So in terms of minimizing the risks, it's really being vigilant about what you're looking at that's coming into your mailbox. The general rule is if it's unsolicited or unexpected or doesn't look right, just delete it. Obviously, as a business, you are going to get inquiries coming in through emails, but they should be fairly easy to spot. Likewise, it's worth reiterating, if it does look suspicious but potentially related to something that you genuinely use, go to the known good address of the site. Actually type in paypal.com or whatever it happens to be, northernbank.co.uk or whatever it is, go directly to the site or contact them over the telephone. You can reduce the impact of these things by having good IT network controls in place. Certainly antivirus is your last port of call, but before that, if you have a good firewall in place on your network, and you can also look at having some sort of mail gateway in place that will help sort of strip a lot of this stuff out even before it gets to your mailbox. If your organization has IT security policies, you need to make sure people are following them. If you don't, you probably want to look at actually coming up with some sort of acceptable use policy where you let your staff know exactly what the do's and don'ts are around security items, about installing software, about what they can and can't access, and all that sort of stuff. And that then falls under the awareness and training. You need to let your employees know about the risks to data protection, about the risks of phishing and online fraud, about the risks of installing unauthorized software, and then also what they can and can't access depending on their role, and whether you allow them to use their own devices to access company email, for example. And then if you implement those controls, then you need some sort of audit process in place to make sure that people are actually following them. You can also consider cyber insurance. Some insurance providers are now providing cyber insurance to protect you against these cybersecurity threats. So obviously that's a service that you have to pay for. The insurance companies are obviously saying this is now a good time to buy these things because the premiums are only likely to go up, but they're trying to sell you that service. Okay, so in terms of incident response, if I've accidentally responded to a phishing email or something has happened, well, what do? Well, the first stage is report it. Internally within the company, you make sure the appropriate people know so they can take steps. If you think it's a financial fraud, you got to get in touch with your bank or credit card providers as soon as possible. They will put effectively a block on whatever the account happens to be, hopefully to prevent any unauthorized withdrawal of funds or to prevent any further ones if that has actually happened. So again, if you've been compromised, you need to go to the legitimate site or whatever it happens to be and change your logon details. Make sure that your password isn't shared, make sure you come up with a unique password, and also if you haven't already done it, enable two-factor authentication. So a lot of banks now for online banking require you to have a piece of software on your phone or a hardware RSA token that you use in combination with your login details, and that's to prove that it's you and to prevent somebody else logging on. Okay, so social media. Social media is a really good place for the bad guys to harvest information, to target these phishing emails, or to build up a profile on people to enable them to come up with, make stuff look genuine. So within your own social media, you need to be very much aware of your security settings. Don't leave it open to the wide world. Try and tie it down to your friends list, and be very aware of actually what you put online. In terms of the organization, again, you need to have the roles and responsibilities defined, and only the right people can access your company's social media feeds. And then you need to instruct your employees about what they can and cannot do or say about your organization, because there's a very real risk of reputational damage depending on what they put on their own individual pages. So you need to pay attention to the security settings. It's worth going on every now and again to your Facebook page and seeing what additional services that you have enabled. There is an application framework for your organization that is worth disabling, and it sort of it blocks on a lot of the sort of the data harvesting applications that are on there. Be aware of these things about whether it's your name for Christmas, or your Christmas elf name would be you know, if your first name is this or that, or your birth date and all that sort of stuff, that's you giving away free information. So just be aware of that. So two-factor authentication, again, is your friend in these circumstances. It means if somebody tries to log on somewhere else with your account, if they don't have that second factor, they can't get on, and you will then be notified that somebody tried to log on. And obviously be aware that these online services are free services. They want to build a profile up on you or your organization to sell you targeted advertising, so you are kind of the product that they're targeting. So again, just be aware of what you're putting on there, and that you're not giving away free information that's kind of increasing your security risk. Okay, so mobile devices. Mobile devices can be seen as a major security threat to any organization. They're small and they're compact, they're high value, so they're a target for theft, and they're also easily lost. So you need to make sure that in company devices you've got appropriate security controls in place, and that staff or employees know that they are not to be trying to circumvent any security settings, and that they're only authorized to install approved apps. There are management solutions that you can put in place around this, but obviously there is a cost and an expertise implication associated with that. But if you have an outsourced IT provider, it'd be worth speaking to them about additional controls you can put on mobile devices. You also need to think about whether you allow your employees to access company resources through their own personal devices. And if that's the case, you need to make sure again that they have appropriate security controls in place. So, key controls on mobile devices and personal mobile devices. Are the systems up to date? So auto update needs to be enabled. Some sort of PIN, password, or biometric, or fingerprint, or facial recognition needs to be enabled. And most devices now, when you enable that, it will automatically encrypt the device. Any laptop devices really should be encrypted. It's actually a recommendation of the ICO that any mobile device should be encrypted. It means if it's lost or stolen, if it's suitably encrypted, it doesn't have to be reported to the ICO as a security incident or a data protection breach. If you're not sure if it's encrypted, then you would have to report that to the ICO if you don't know what's on it. You need to be very aware of installing apps on Android devices. The Android App Store is very open, so when you're getting away from some more commonly known apps, a lot of them have been proved to effectively be harvesting data. So just be wary. And also you need to have rules about what people can and can't do over public Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi that's available in cafes, trains, train stations, airports should all be trusted, or should all be considered as untrusted. So if you're accessing sensitive information over that, it should be over some sort of VPN service. So you might want to look at using some sort of secure VPN service to protect your employees if they are out and about. With mobile devices, you can turn Wi-Fi off and use your 4G connection if you have a 4G connection, which is not 100% secure, but it certainly seems to be a lot more secure than a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Okay, so in terms of information security best practice, there's a list of controls from an organization which is called ISACA. You can look that up online. They have the CIS top 20 controls. If you implement the top 5 controls, it's estimated that it will reduce your risk or prevent 80% of attacks. So the top 5 controls are an inventory of authorized and unauthorized devices on your network. So you need to know what you have in order to protect it. An inventory of authorized software and unauthorized software. Again, you need to know what you have in order to protect it. Secure configuration for your hardware and software. So again, if you have a laptop, mobile devices, and particular pieces of software, making sure that they're patched, that they're up to date, and that only the right people have access to the services. Control number 4 is continual vulnerability assessment and remediation. So a good antivirus platform will go a long way to addressing that, but then you can go on above and beyond that, where you can be doing what they call vulnerability scanning within your network. Again, that's something you probably want to talk to an IT provider about, or if you've in-house IT people, get them to have a look at that. And then the last of the top 5 one is controlled use of administrative privileges. So again, know who your admin people are, know who has admin services or access to various services, And it may be that you need to have more than one person. If you only have one person that can access your Sage payroll, for example, if something were to happen to them, then you've lost access, so you need a backup. So it's not about necessarily restricting it, it's about removing risk. So that can be also removing single points of failure. So that's the CIS top 5 controls. In terms of password best practice, you need to make sure everybody has unique passwords and they are not sharing them. If somebody's seen to be sharing passwords, you need to enforce them. You need to enforce a password reset. Actually, current password best practice is not to change passwords too often. This idea of changing them every 30 days is now kind of no longer seen as best practice, because it leads people to use the same password over and over again, but just change the number at the end, which it doesn't. If that's compromised, it doesn't really help. It's also worthwhile monitoring admin account access. So again, speak to your IT provider about if they can do some sort of alerting on admin account access. Again, two-factor authentication for services is to be encouraged. It's becoming easier and easier to implement, and it's also a very, very good tool for preventing unauthorized access to systems. Also, in terms of best practice, you need to make sure that auto update is enabled on all systems and platforms. So that's in terms of Windows updates, Mac OS updates, Linux updates, mobile device updates, and then software, Office, Adobe, all that sort of stuff. Yes, there is a risk that an update might break something, but it's less of a risk than a vulnerability being exploited and you getting a ransomware attack. So yeah, make sure you patch every month if possible. So in terms of where can I get help? So in terms of the data protection stuff, you can go to the Information Commissioner's Office or the ICO website. There's a load of stuff on there that will help you in terms of data protection and marketing, and they can point you to other government departments in terms of cyber security. In terms of Ireland, you can go to the Data Protection Commissioner's website, and also the Isle of Man is an Information Commissioner's website. So they all offer slightly different viewpoints on GDPR and data protection, but they are definitely worth having a look at. There's lots of online sites that are available in terms of data protection, but they will take you so far because a lot of them are commercial organizations and then they want to sell you a service. So they'll give away a certain amount of information, but then they will want you to pay for their services. And in terms of information security, you can go to the like of Microsoft, you can go to ISACA, you can go to, there's an organization called SANS, S-A-N-S, they're a training provider, but they offer a lot of free services on information security, and that's really what they do. And in terms of getting sort of further training, you can contact CITB NI and they will point you in the right direction. So thank you.